Have you ever stood in front of the mirror and quietly asked yourself, when did I stop feeling like me? It's not a dramatic moment. There's no music playing, just the weight of your own reflection staring back, wondering how a million little compromises turned into this low-grade, constant ache. I've had that moment, and I know you've probably had it too. It was a rainy Tuesday. I remember, because I spilled coffee on my only clean shirt. I was sitting in traffic, late for a meeting I didn't want to be at, thinking about a life I wasn't even sure I chose. I whispered to myself, something has to change. But what? And how? And that, my friends, is where this 3-day challenge was born. Not out of inspiration, but out of quiet desperation. And sometimes, that's the best place to begin. Before starting, please like, subscribe, comment, and share the channel in Brené Brown style, without mention her 20-40 words. Most of us go through life unaware of the quiet background noise in our minds, that persistent hum of self-doubt, judgment, comparison. It's so familiar, we don't even notice it. It's like living next to a train track. At some point, the rumble just blends in, but every now and then, something shakes us awake, and we realize this noise has shaped our entire inner world. The first day of this challenge isn't about changing anything yet. It's not about fixing yourself or setting goals or even being better. It's about awareness. That's it. Just noticing. Just being brave enough to pause. You know those thoughts that slip through your mind as you're brushing your teeth or scrolling your phone? The ones that say you're not doing enough, you should have figured it out by now, no one really sees you. Yeah, those. They don't shout. They whisper. They weave into your habits, your decisions, your relationships, and they quietly pull you away from who you really are. On this first day, you're invited to become an observer of your own mind. Not a critic, not a fixer, just a compassionate witness. What are the stories playing on repeat? What words do you use when you speak to yourself? How do you react when you make a mistake? With curiosity or with shame? When I first did this, I realized I had a habit of calling myself lazy, not out loud, but internally. Whenever I rested or chose stillness or didn't check something off my list, I heard this voice, "You're wasting time." But where did that come from? Whose voice was that? Because it wasn't mine. It was inherited, absorbed, never questioned, until I did. And that's the power of day one. It gives you back your power, not through force, but through awareness. Imagine walking into a garden you've neglected for years. The weeds are overgrown. Some flowers are still blooming, but they're hidden. You wouldn't shout at the garden. You wouldn't judge it. You'd start by simply looking, walking through it slowly, seeing what's there. That's what this first day is, a walk through the garden of your mind. Eyes open, heart soft. You don't have to uproot anything yet. You don't need to make it pretty. All you need is the courage to look with honest, tender eyes and say, I'm here. I'm listening now. And that one decision to listen is where everything begins to shift. The second day is where most people quietly step back, not because they're weak, not because they're incapable, but because looking inward, really looking, is some of the bravest work a human being can do. And bravery never feels like bravery in the moment. It feels like trembling. It feels like your heart racing and your throat tightening. It feels like, what if I don't like what I find? But let me tell you something true. What's inside you isn't shameful, it's sacred. It's not broken, it's bruised. It's not ugly, it's unspoken. Day 2 asks us to go beneath the surface, to move past the weeds we noticed yesterday and get curious about where they came from. Not with blame, not with judgment, but with tenderness, with truth. Maybe love came with conditions. Maybe emotions weren't safe, or vulnerability was punished, or perfection was praised more than presence. And somewhere along the way, you made an unspoken agreement. If I just keep it all together, maybe I'll be loved. If I don't need anything, maybe I won't get hurt. If I keep achieving, maybe I'll finally feel enough. I remember discovering one of my own silent contracts on day 2. I was journaling, and I wrote without thinking, "It's my job to make everyone else comfortable." That stopped me. Because in that moment, I realized how many years I'd spent abandoning myself, my boundaries, my needs, my truth, just to keep the peace. And that realization hurt. But it also cracked something open. Because when you finally name the belief, you stop being ruled by it. That's what this day is about. It's not about wallowing in the past, it's about unearthing what's been hidden so you can finally breathe. It might look like sitting in stillness and feeling emotions you've numbed for years. It might mean letting tears come without rushing to explain them. It might mean writing a letter to your younger self and telling them you never had to earn love, you were already worthy. And please hear this with your whole heart. Healing doesn't mean pretending everything was okay. It means honoring what happened, feeling what needs to be felt, and choosing, finally, to stop running from yourself. You are allowed to feel grief. You are allowed to feel anger. You are allowed to feel confusion. These are not signs of failure, they are signs of aliveness. And the more gently you meet yourself in these places, the more you begin to realize the parts of you you've been avoiding are not your weakness. They're the keys to your freedom. This second day is not about fixing the past. It's about facing it with the softness and strength you didn't have back then, but do now. And I promise, you're strong enough. Even if you don't feel it, especially if you don't feel it. By the time you reach day 3, something subtle but sacred has already begun to shift. You've observed the chaos of your thoughts. You started uncovering the deeper roots, the wounds, the inherited beliefs, the stories you've carried for years. And now you stand at the threshold of something tender and powerful. Choice. Not the kind of choice we're used to. Not the high-pressure, life-changing kind. I'm talking about micro choices. Quiet, gentle choices that seem insignificant in the moment, but over time, they change everything. This is where rewiring begins. And the truth is, rewiring your mind isn't about becoming a brand new person overnight. It's about creating new, loving patterns to replace the old limiting ones, and repeating them with compassion, not perfection. We live in a culture that glorifies drastic change. We're taught to believe that unless the transformation is dramatic, it doesn't count. Lose 30 pounds in 30 days, build a business in a week, heal your trauma in one weekend workshop. But real change, real, lasting, soul-deep transformation doesn't look like a fireworks show. It looks like a flicker that you choose to protect, a flicker that you choose to return to again and again until one day it becomes a flame. Let me give you an example. After uncovering some of my own deep-rooted beliefs on day 2, I started noticing how often I criticized myself without even realizing it. I'd spill water and mutter, "You're so clumsy." I'd miss a deadline and immediately think, "Of course you did. You always screw things up." That's when I began a practice so small, it almost felt silly. Every time I caught myself being harsh, I'd pause, breathe, and speak to myself like I would to a dear friend. "Hey, it's okay. You're human. You're doing the best you can." At first it felt awkward, unnatural. But over time, those moments of compassion started to carve a new path in my brain. A path where love spoke louder than shame. A path where softness didn't mean weakness. It meant safety. And that's the secret to rewiring. Repetition, not perfection. You will not get it right every day. You will forget. You'll fall back into old patterns. But every single time you catch yourself and choose a kinder path, that's rewiring. That's building a new neural connection that says, "I'm safe now. I don't need to survive this moment, I can live it. Maybe for you, the rewiring looks like setting a boundary and not apologizing for it. Maybe it looks like resting without guilt. Maybe it's looking in the mirror and saying, I'm not broken, I'm becoming. Whatever it is, let it be small, let it be sacred, let it be yours. And please don't wait to feel ready or healed enough. Start with the shaky voice, the unsure hands, the messy first step. Because your brain doesn't rewire when you feel perfect. It rewires when you feel safe. And safety is something you can start giving yourself now. This day, day 3, isn't an end. It's a beginning. The beginning of showing up for yourself not once, but daily. Gently, consistently, imperfectly. And in time, those small choices you make to speak kindly, to pause and breathe, to reach inward instead of outward, they will become who you are. Not because you changed yourself, but because you remembered yourself and chose, with love, to come back home. There comes a moment in this journey, sometimes quietly, sometimes through tears, when you begin to realize something that feels almost too big to hold. You've spent so much of your life trying to prove your worth, and you never had to. Let that sink in. So much of our pain, our anxiety, our hustle, our overthinking, our people-pleasing, it all stems from this core belief that somehow, somewhere along the way, we became not enough, that our value was something to earn, that our lovability depended on how small we made ourselves or how impressive we appeared. But here's the truth. Most of us were never taught. You don't have to earn worth. You just have to remember it. And remembering is hard when you've been told the opposite for so long. When every system, every relationship, every unhealed voice in your past told you that love had to be deserved, or success had to be painful, or vulnerability meant weakness. But they were wrong. You were born worthy. Full stop. Not once you achieve, not when you're perfect, not after you fix yourself. Now, here, as you are. And I know that might feel hard to believe, because we've been conditioned to see ourselves through the lens of performance, through grades, job titles, follower counts, bank balances, relationship status, all these external metrics we use to justify our existence. But those things aren't mirrors. They're distractions. They don't tell you who you are. They tell you who the world has asked you to be. Real worth, the kind that can't be taken or shaken, doesn't come from outside. It's something you uncover layer by layer when you strip away the noise. It's the stillness beneath the storm. It's the calm that remains after the tears. It's the voice inside you that says, I'm still here, and I'm not leaving. When I finally let myself touch that truth, even for a second, it cracked something open in me. I was sitting in silence after a long, emotional day, and I whispered out loud, I don't have to prove anything today. I just have to be. And in that moment, not everything changed, but something did. I felt free. Not because I had reached some perfect version of myself, but because for the first time, I wasn't at war with who I already was. That's what this part of the journey invites you into. Not self-improvement, self-remembrance. Because your enoughness isn't a future destination. It's your origin. It's your birthright. It's the ground beneath all your healing. And I want you to know, no matter how long you've believed otherwise, no matter how many masks you've worn, or how deeply you've buried yourself, it's not too late to come back. Not to some ideal version of you, but to the real you. The messy, brilliant, still becoming you. Because underneath it all, the striving, the fear, the shame, there is someone soft and strong and sacred. Someone who still is. And you don't need to earn your way back to that truth. You just need to stop running from it. You are already enough, not because of what you've done, but because you exist. So now you've come this far. You faced the noise in your mind, uncovered the roots of your pain, planted new seeds of compassion, and begun to remember your worth. And maybe, right now, you feel a mixture of hope and hesitation. Maybe you're wondering, what happens next? What if I forget all of this tomorrow? What if I slide back? Let me offer you something gentle and real. You probably will forget. You'll wake up one morning and your old habits will try to reclaim you. You'll get overwhelmed. You'll fall into self-doubt. You'll scroll mindlessly, pick the familiar response, silence your voice to keep the peace. And that's okay, because the goal of this journey was never perfection. The goal was never to arrive at some flawless version of yourself. The goal was to remember that you are allowed to begin again, 1,000 times if you have to. That's what real transformation is, not a finish line, but a series of tiny, brave returns. What truly rewires your mind isn't the intensity of one breakthrough moment. It's the steady, daily devotion to showing up for yourself in small, courageous ways, especially on the days it feels pointless. It looks like pausing before you say yes out of guilt and asking yourself, do I really want this? It looks like catching your inner critic mid-sentence and saying, no, not today. I'm not speaking to myself like that anymore. It looks like lighting a candle and sitting in silence for 5 minutes, even when your to-do list is screaming at you to get up. It looks like unfollowing the voices that make you feel less than and leaning into the ones that remind you who you really are. It looks like writing yourself a note and sticking it on your mirror. You're doing better than you think. These acts may seem small, insignificant, but let me be clear, they're not. They are radical. They are revolutionary. Because every time you choose compassion over punishment, rest over hustle, truth over performance, you're not just healing yourself, you're breaking cycles, you're changing patterns that have been passed down for generations. You're modeling a new way of being for everyone who watches you, including your inner child. So often, we wait to feel confident before we act. We wait for clarity before we commit. But what if you didn't need to wait anymore? What if confidence is what grows when you act without it? What if clarity comes not from having all the answers, but from making space for the question? You are not weak for needing reminders. You are not broken because you still have doubts. You are human, and being human is not a flaw. It's the most sacred thing you'll ever be. Please don't underestimate what you've done by walking through these 3 days with honesty and heart. Most people never pause long enough to look within. Most people are so afraid of what they'll find that they keep running, keep numbing, keep pretending, settling for life the way, but you stopped, you listened, you showed up. That's not small. That's everything. You've already started rewiring. It may not be obvious yet, but those new neural pathways are forming. Each breath, each choice, each whisper of self-love, it's happening quietly, powerfully. So now your invitation is this: keep going, not because you're trying to fix yourself, but because you're finally learning to honor yourself. Keep coming back to the practices that ground you. Keep choosing gentleness. Keep remembering that the goal is not to become someone else, but to be more fully yourself. And when it gets hard, when the old voices come back and try to pull you into the old patterns, remind yourself, I've walked through my own darkness. I've sat in the fire of my truth. I've felt the weight of my story and still chose to love myself anyway. That is strength. That is freedom. That is what it means to rewire not just your mind, but your life. And every single time you do, even when no one sees it, you are becoming the kind of person this world desperately needs. Whole, honest, unshakably human. And you are never, ever alone. If this stirred something in you, even just a whisper, follow it. Take the challenge. 3 days, 3 deep breaths, 3 steps back into yourself. And if this message spoke to you, share it with someone else who needs a nudge, a mirror, or a moment of hope. You're not behind. You're not lost. You're simply being called home to your truth, your wholeness, yourself. And I promise, you are more than ready